To clap. All right. Hi, Megan.
Hi.
We're so excited to be with you.
Gosh, I'm so excited that we're finally like recording the magic that always happens when we get to connect and talk.
I know. I feel, missing people make fun of Missy and I that we can have conversations without kind of
Talking.
speaking. And I feel like when we first connected with you, we were just like full body chills. Yes.
Right?
Understand the looks.
Exactly. Well, we're so excited to just kind of chat with you. And, for us, when we created Pebbl, it was just, we wanted to just make it easy and comfortable for people to just like take that pause and just whatever that means for them. And so for us, I think it means something different, but I'd love to hear from you just kind of, was there an initial pause or like that moment that kind of got you, I know it's a big question, but kind of started you on your path? And then we're going to get to know you, but just by way of introduction, that you're a teacher, you're an author from one of our favorite books, Don't Hate, Meditate. And you just, I think we both appreciate just your no kind of nonsense style. And you just make not just meditation, but spirituality so accessible. And so I think that's what we wanted to kind of talk about. And I think just starting with, yeah, was there kind of an initial moment for you that kind of got you on the path?
Yeah, well, thanks for that lovely intro. Yeah, and the entryway that I had to this path, I think, is so common, which is it was a physical imbalance that just knocked me out. And I hear it all the time from people of like, oh, I got sick, so I finally had to stop for a minute, or oh, this thing imploded in my life, so I finally had to stop and reflect. And I think it's really natural and unfortunately so much easier to address the pain points than it is to like make those subtle shifts to keep ourselves in balance. And it's not how our brain is wired, which doesn't help. And it's not, I don't think, how our society is wired. I think we're really programmed to just like go until we hit some kind of a wall, whether it's a material something in our life or a physical symptom or an emotional imbalance that shows up where we have to say, oh, like this maybe isn't working and I need to create a change in my life. And, that change for me, that wall initially happened, fortunately and unfortunately, when I was in my early 20s. I always, people will come up to me and say, oh, you're so lucky that you found all of this so young. And yes, but also my life was so messed up and my body was so messed up at such a young age. And like, that kind of sucks. But but yeah, I found it because at a certain point, my body in my early 20s reached a boiling point and was no longer able to mask and sort of overcompensate for a lot of undigested feelings that I was having, specifically around some stuff going on with my dad at the time and the stress in my life. And I joke, I had to get my gallbladder taken out when I was 22 from stress. And like, that's not a sign that things are going well when you have to get non-vital organs removed. And that's what really sent me into a search for how to deal with my stress, how to metabolize experiences that I had and ways to move through that in a way that didn't involve just my body kind of taking it on so that I could move throughout the world just like I'm fine, right? When I was clearly not fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have like a spiritual like awareness or practice or anything kind of before that? No.
No, I mean, I will say that I was raised really active in my Presbyterian church, so I did have a connection to, although I wasn't like very religious at the time, I did have a connection to the idea of something bigger than me. So that wasn't crazy foreign. But I had never meditated. I never had an experience of like sitting with myself and noticing my mind. Like none of that was, it was very much, as so many of us are, on that just auto loop
Yeah.
of conditioning,
Yeah.
having the same thoughts every day, having the same perception of the world that we've had since we were 8 years old, and just kind of doing the best that I could with that.
But it is interesting, just that small opening of that idea of something bigger.
Yeah.
That's really all it takes, right? Like just that even curiosity
Mhm.
allows something else to come through.
Yeah, I think that allowed it to not feel scary
Yeah.
when my practice did bring me to a more spiritual lane. Because when I first started meditating, it really was purely for stress. It was purely to help my body and my nervous system rebalance and recalibrate. And then it started being about, oh my gosh, I feel really connected to this practice and I'm feeling like a sense of purpose and like I could be doing this and I want to help people and this like deep calling to want to share these teachings and so that obviously took a turn into connecting me with a sense of dharma and I think yeah to your point that didn't feel scary because I had already had a glimpse into my own spirituality.
And I think that's so important for people to hear because I think we hear it all the time. Like people are like, I should meditate. I should, the should kind of shoulding themselves. But that's why it's so important to hear people's kind of beginnings. So for me, I came from the same place, kind of that physical point of stress. Like I just needed something. I mean, I had been a spiritual, I don't like the word seeker any, but had been doing a lot. But for you, Missy, I mean, it really was the curiosity and the mysticism. Like
I've always just liked to go there. Like that's just the fun part for me.
like the mysticism.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember when she was in college, like what's the class you
I
took?
did.
It was like a Jewish mysticism and she was like, what, you were like a poli-sci major. And I just remember she'd call home and we'd be talking with my parents and she'd be so excited and they'd be like, what's happening? Like,
Yeah.
and it really was the path and kind of continues to be. And I think that's why we work well together. I mean, for me, it's also now we're both like
Kooky to the max.
mystical. Yeah, the mystical is kind of our favorite stuff to explore. But yeah, so but it's important to hear there's so many different entry points that you can come into it. So I think that's what I want people to hear.
And I think it's okay too to normalize the very real nature of those access points and the fact that they will change.
Yeah, exactly.
And to be okay with like, oh, I started doing this because I was really motivated to change my body chemistry and my brain and how it's functioning. And now I'm really like turned on by the idea of connecting with purpose. And now I'm really meditating because my relationship is kind of a hot mess. And I need to like do some shadow work with like where some of that conditioning might be getting in the way. And oh, now I'm doing it because I'm a mom and I want to not like pass on the same cycle. There are just so many ways that your practice will show up for you and having a tangible, even if it is wanting to connect more to like the mystical, like sexy, like manifesting, all of that cool stuff, being okay with the fact that the motivator will change.
And for sure, like at my life right now, my motivation is peace. Period. I don't care if I go all the way up or I'm staying right. Like I'm just interested in peace around me with the people.
With two teenagers, and she's doing it. I mean, ain't easy.
I just locked the door.
That's not true. I mean, I really would, and I think this is where there's the entry point, but then as you mentioned, like how we evolve and we're going to meet our practice, they show up for us in ways we don't even know. And so I think for both of us, it's been for so many people such a transformational and like so many shifts have occurred for us personally with losing our parents. But like, I think we're witnessing in each other, like, oh, like this stuff is really landing and it's really showed up for us in ways that we can stay connected. Those moments, as difficult as they are, can be really meaningful. And that's anything from if I'm in a grief wave to if she's having a moment with her teenager and they're just, that she can stay calm within the midst of it. It's remarkable, really. I mean, not just
But
so
it's almost like a cellular transformation though, inside that allows you that. It's not just like there's something in the practice, right, that it readjusts and almost recalibrates.
Absolutely. And beautiful and like slightly annoying thing that I think we have to all get on board with is that you've I call it like when you stop pressing snooze on your consciousness, on your awareness. Once you're awake, there's always refinement. Like there's always this work to be done. The point is not to ever like be done and then coast, which sucks. Like, get it. It totally sucks to just be now for the rest of your life and to have to be like conscious and aware of yourself and
the red bow and call it.
Yeah, like we've all taken the red pill, right? And now it's like, oh wow, I'm gonna commit to doing this work. And sometimes that work might look like choosing something different when you're in a conversation with your teenager, or choosing when to engage in a way that might be different. And it might look like how you're navigating grief, and it might look like how you're perceiving a moment and what you're drawing from it. And it will continue to show up, and the points in your life that come up will activate where there is still work to be done within yourself. So, I entered into a relationship at the beginning of the pandemic. What a great time to just get really vulnerable and like have a reflector of all of the places that you need to do work.
Right.
And out of nowhere, it was like, oh, wow, I have so much work to do in like this crevice. And there's some stuff hidden here and here and here. And, so it's in, I think, welcoming the discomfort of your evolution and knowing that you have this practice that is there as like the blanket and the thing that is like holding you tight while you bravely look at, where your work is and where your work is showing up.
And I think,
does that sound like fun? Don't you all want to meditate?
It's true, but I do want to point out that like, the stuff still comes up, but the time it takes to work through it or transmute it does lessen, both in kind of the harshness, like the peak and the valleys do smooth out, and they're not as, you can work through like.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that is
yeah. And I think that's a really good way to describe it, because truly when you are accessing a deeper level of consciousness and awareness, the highs don't feel as high and the lows don't feel as low. Yeah. And there is this sort of really beautiful baseline level of contentment that I feel, almost all of the time. Even when there is something happening around me that's wildly uncomfortable, it's like, oh, okay, like that's happening and I'm okay and safe. And that level of equanimity really starts to grow, that degree to which you can feel grounded and anchored and safe within yourself, regardless of any of the turbulence around you, is a very real thing.
Yeah. And that kind of speaks to how you started, that feeling of safety. That is our nervous system, like settled, and that's what we're just not used to that. So I love that. We were talking a little bit right before, and I know you talk about this in your book, the idea around kind of spiritual drafting. And I know for us, like, again, we'll talk mystical all day long, but this idea, like with February coming up, so 2/22/22, we've been like, we're like, we don't know what we want to do, but it's a big day. We want to launch something. So I know we'll talk about your 21-day challenge, but I think there's so many perspectives on when you see like what signs are. So for us, or for me, I'll speak for myself, like seeing double or triple digits, it's definitely like an angelic sign. And even more specifically, there's certain number patterns that I know are, connected to kind of loved ones. So I'd love to hear kind of your perspective on all of that.
Yeah, I love a sign, and I love giving power to something that is tangible, that our very humanness can connect to help us believe something bigger than us. So I hear my dad passed away, and I hear certain music, and without fail, if I'm like, I need to like hear you or see you, I'll like hear that song. Or longer story, I always think of it when I see Marlboro Red, very spiritual containers or imaging, and there will be times when I'm like, I need to see you, and then out of nowhere will be the biggest like Marlboro Red thing like right in my path. And so it's assigning meaning to things, which we can do and then leverage and have that be the thing that tells us, oh yeah, you're not out of your mind. Like you are connected, or there is something bigger than you, or just because you can't see it and feel it and hear it doesn't mean it's not energetically still around you. And so I'm all for assigning meaning to things. And numbers are great. There's a whole, numerology is something that I would love to know more about, but that I totally geek out over, and looking at your life through the cycles of your numbers and the numbers that are assigned to letters. And so your kind of numerological profile because of your name and when you were born and what time. And so there's all sorts of things that you can look at with numbers, but when we look at the idea of kind of angel numbers or spirit numbers, there are ways that we can interpret that. And to your point, to bring up, my favorite idea, which is spiritual drafting, before we get into numbers, I think, as we were talking about, I think it's really important to leverage the energy that's around you. So it's a lot easier to naturally think about gratitude during November because that's all everyone's talking about. That's all every meditation is about. That's where you see cards about. It's constantly everywhere. Like, what are you grateful for? Right? It's easier to look at the idea of love in February because it's Valentine's Day or December holidays, right? So there are these things that are part of what we would call like our collective soul, the kind of universal themes and stories that we have all heard thousands and thousands of times and kind of opted into, that kind of shared fabric of this quilt that we're all a part of. And those things are bigger than us. It's why I cry at every sports movie. It's not because I'm like a sports fanatic. It's because the idea of like the underdog scoring and like the team coming together, it's because that's a meaningful theme and story that like touches me in a certain way. Right. So there's a reason why we make movies about the same things and write songs about the same 6 things over and over and over. And it still continues to touch us because it's this thing that's bigger than us, but that we also see within us. And I'm all for anytime you can leverage that, not unlike drafting. If you were racing, a bike or a horse or drafting and kind of snuggling up behind this thing that's in the front so that you don't have to work as hard to feel that energy or to leverage that energy. So do that with whatever you can, with whatever feels authentic and meaningful to you. And it might be, to your point, every time the clock says, 2:34, you're like, oh my gosh, the universe has my back and like money's on its way to me. Or every time you see it's 1:11, you're like, oh my gosh, that's, this loved one saying hi, because that, go for it. And don't allow it to be something that holds you back when it doesn't happen, or, don't allow Mercury being in retrograde to be the thing that causes you to have a bad day. Right. But absolutely, that always cracks me up. I'm like, listen, there are a lot of planets and
I think we lost your sound. Is that us?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
it was Mercury in retrograde.
I'm going out.
Mercury is like, listen.
Yeah.
No, that is literally like one of our parents or Mercury or someone. I'm not gonna lie to you, my dad does like mess with technology a lot when he.
Our dad, for me, comes through as quite the jokester too. So they must be teaming up and being like, "Oh, let's get them."
Like, enough, you guys.
My AirPods, where it just switched to AirPod audio, are nowhere near me. So, literally, like in a very distant room from me. So, that's funny. I love that.
Good one, universe. We'll just acknowledge it. That's good.
It's there. I get it. So using numbers, using, any of these things to affirm something bigger than you, I am all for. So I really like 111. I like the number 1. When I look at clocks, I see that one a lot, which is very much look at what you're thinking right now. Like thoughts become things. Like, what are you manifesting with your thoughts? It's very much the energy of 1, and especially like 111. And 222 is all about balance and harmony, especially within your relationships, like interpersonally. but 222 is very much, if you see that number, that time, it's very much a sign of like you're moving into balance. Things are balanced. There's this this really warm, loving energy around 222, which is fantastic, and I think also opens up this opportunity to look at any areas of your life where maybe you want to move more into that direction, where there is constriction, where you are not thriving, whether that's something in your material world, whether that's something within yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally. Where is there an opportunity to move just a little more into that energy of balance and harmony? Where is there resistance to it? What might be holding you back from that? Which is something that, we all need.
Yeah. And I think to like on that note to like February 22nd and within that February 2nd, 2022, it really is just an like we think of it as kind of like a portal opening with that energy of balance and harmony. So it kind of leads us into why we really wanted to launch your 21-day, kind of share your 21-day series with the Pebbl family. And so I'd love to hear kind of explain what it is. And, your style, as I mentioned, it's so accessible. So we're really excited to share it because there's so much information out there, and I think it can just feel daunting and paralyzing for so many people. So I know that would love to hear kind of the inspiration why you created it and why the 21 days and
So it started, the sort of seed of inspiration really happened in the middle of the pandemic, when I was really just looking at, again, this opportunity where everything was paused and where we did have this unintentional portal, really, this collective moment of reflection and looking at like what's working, looking at what's not working, and really redefining what it means to thrive. Because I think for a lot of people, thriving looked like your job and your bank account and like the very material elements of your life. And as that has shifted, and it's still continuing to be and look different in all of our lives, we have to really look at this 360-degree definition of thriving and what does that look like? And so there's meditations that give you, guidance and some guided reflections and visualizations, as well as reflection time to look at your life and to look at your external world, but then also to look at what it means to thrive within your physical body and how are you looking at that, and what it means to thrive within your heart and within your mind. And then, spiritually accessing that element of thrive, and really kind of taking you through all these different layers of who you are, including your physical environment and your material, tangible world, and just guiding you through moving into a state of thrive in that total well-being kind of sense.
Yeah. And remind me how long most of the days are. I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah. Each one is between 9 and 15 minutes.
Yeah. So
I was like, they're all going to be 10 minutes. And then I started recording them and I'm like, no, this has to be longer. Like we have to keep.
Yeah. So, and I love it because it really is, it's providing people so many different tools to see what resonates for them. And I think especially for people that are starting out, especially the people are like, oh, I should meditate, I can't meditate. This is like the perfect first step because, it's just giving people that experiential.
And the meditations, they're deep and they're beautiful.
And the music's awesome.
And the music is awesome. And it's an outrageous value. I mean, honestly, like the amount, not just the amount of content, but what it all encompasses. It's incredible.
It's definitely you have an experience. Like there's definitely an opportunity for transformation. And there's, in the beginning of the meditation, I talk for a few minutes always so that you have that intellectual understanding of whatever the concept is that we're going to then meditate on, so that you can take that with you. And then also obviously the meditation that will help shift you from the inside out. It's been really fun, and it's been great to be able to have something that people can do even if I can't be there with them in that moment, and getting it in your email every day makes it really easy to stay accountable and on track, and you get connected to to this community of other people doing it. So yeah, it's been really
And
fun.
can you just talk about the importance of kind of the 21 days, like why consistency is important
Yeah.
starting out?
Yeah, it's that magic number that we've all gotten on board with. I think it was Stephen Covey, right? He's the one that did this to us. That initial point where you can create a new habit, not fully, but that initial layer of, oh, we're gonna do this now, takes 21 days.
Yeah. And I know it really does make a difference, even if you can't do every single day. So I know, well, for both of us, but I definitely started with the Oprah and Deepak 21 day. I did a couple of those.
Yeah.
And then I attended the Chopra Center, which I know you have worked at, their Seduction of Spirit. Then Missy also attended that. And I do think it was like those 21-day challenges kind of helped to jumpstart so I could be more available for that kind of bigger experience of the retreat. So
in fact, back in the day, way before Oprah and Deepak were doing it at the Chopra Center, they would have all of us who were certified teachers doing them. So if you go to like the first and second and third challenges from, circa 2000 and like, I don't even know, a long time ago, you'll hear me on day like 13 or
awesome. 13. Perfect.
So funny. But yeah, no, they really revolutionized that journey of 21 days with meditation, and having it be this thing that is kind of self-guided, that you just press play, and it's so effective. It's really like an amazing tool to bring into your life.
Well, we're excited. We're going to be doing it, and we'll be sharing it with everyone. So, is there anything?
No, we're just really grateful. Thank you.
Thanks for just your Pebbl support and all the ways that you've helped to spread the word. And we're just really grateful to, we have another sister also named Megan. So I think we're naturally in the Trinity. So we're just really grateful that you're part of the Pebbl family and just excited to continue to explore ways to collaborate.
Absolutely. You guys are the best. I
appreciate you. Awesome. Well, thanks. We'll share all the information, but we'll be in touch.
Amazing. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks, Megan.
Bye.